The padlock clicked shut like a judge's gavel on a death sentence. My 5-year-old son Eli stood trapped on the wrong side of our own backyard fence, the Arizona sun turning that metal gate into a frying pan at 110 degrees while he screamed for me. And the woman who snapped it closed? Our HOA president Patricia Patty Beaumont, standing there in her pastel blouse and pearl earrings, smiling the way a Sunday school teacher smiles right before she reports you to child services. "Rules are rules, Ryan," she cooed, tilting her sunglasses down just enough to show the ice in her eyes. "That strip is community greenway. We can't have children running loose." I felt something inside me go cold and calculating, the same way it does when I design thermal systems for data centers that can't afford even 1 degree of failure. Because this wasn't just a fence anymore. This was the moment Patty Beaumont finally picked the wrong dad to bully. For 3 years I'd been the quiet widower at the edge of Pinnacle Ridge Estates, the guy everyone whispered about after my wife died. Patty had made sure of that. She'd spread the rumor I was that grieving father who lets his son run wild, issued fines for my grass being half an inch too long, and once threatened to tow my truck because the American flag on my porch was oriented 2 degrees off center. I'd swallowed every insult, paid every fine, kept Eli safe and quiet because fighting an HOA Karen like Patty usually ends with you moving out broke. But locking my son out in lethal heat? That crossed a line no spreadsheet or bylaw could protect her from. I walked past her without another word, used my spare key to pop the padlock, and scooped Eli into my arms. His little body was already burning up, cheeks scarlet, tiny hands blistered from gripping the gate. Patty didn't flinch. She just crossed her arms and sighed like I was the unreasonable one. "Perhaps next time you'll teach him boundaries, Ryan. We're all trying to maintain property values here." Property values. The sacred word she worshipped more than actual human beings. I looked her dead in the eye and said, calm as a thermal reading, "You know I consult on heat transfer safety for server farms that run hotter than this desert, right? I can calculate exactly how many minutes it takes for a child's core temperature to hit organ failure levels. Care to guess how long Eli was out here?" For the first time her plastic smile twitched. Just once. But it was enough. The whole block had started gathering. Phones were out. Mrs. Alvarez from 2 doors down was already recording. Patty noticed and switched to full concern neighbor mode. "This is simply enforcement of community standards, folks. We can't have liability issues." Someone muttered, "Liability? You just endangered a kid." Patty's laugh tinkled like cheap crystal. "Oh please. Rules protect us all." I carried Eli inside, slammed the door, and for the first time in years I didn't feel powerless. I felt like a system finally coming online. By nightfall the neighborhood group chat was exploding. Half the residents defended Patty. "She's just doing her job," while the other half asked if she'd really padlocked a child outside. I didn't reply. I sat at my kitchen table with Eli asleep on my lap, his blistered palms wrapped in cool cloths, and started a new spreadsheet. Date. Time. Temperature. Violation. Every ridiculous fine Patty had ever slapped on anyone. I'd been documenting quietly for months, waiting for the right moment. Tonight the moment had arrived. The next morning I dropped Eli at daycare and headed to the community park where the board held its daily inspection walks. Patty sat under the shade sail like a queen on her throne, clipboard in hand, 2 other board members nodding along while she lectured about unauthorized holiday lights still up in April. I stopped 10 feet away, arms loose, voice even. "Morning, Patty. You might want to start recording these little chats. Something tells me today's minutes are going to matter." Her smile never wavered. "Ryan dear, if you have concerns, file them in writing. We've already issued 3 notices about your fence alignment and that tragic flag situation." I glanced at her clipboard. "And when exactly do you plan to issue one for child endangerment?" The park went dead quiet. Even the cicadas seemed to hold their breath. Patty leaned back, tapping her pen. "You can call the police if you like. They already know it's HOA-managed greenway." That smug confidence was the same one she'd used to bury half the neighborhood in paperwork. But this time I saw the flicker behind her designer sunglasses. She knew she'd gone too far. She just didn't know I was the one man who could prove it with numbers. I walked away without raising my voice. That was the part that scared her most. I didn't yell. I measured. Back at my desk, I pulled out the thermal camera I used for work and started planning. Patty thought she controlled the narrative. She had no idea I was about to turn temperature itself into a courtroom exhibit. The smell of hot metal stayed with me for days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that padlock swinging against the green fence my wife had painted the summer before the accident. By the third morning, the group chat had turned into a battlefield. Someone posted a blurry video of Patty arguing with the police the day of the incident. The comments were vicious. "She's unhinged." Finally, someone says it. But Patty fired back with a long, perfectly formatted post about safety protocols and protecting our investment. She even added a little heart emoji. Dark comedy at its finest, locking a kid in a furnace and signing off with love. I still hadn't posted anything. Instead, I drove the long way home from work every afternoon, noting every cracked sprinkler head, every dead patch of grass, every fence that didn't line up with the official plat maps I'd quietly requested from the county. Patty's greenway wasn't just overlapping my yard by 4 feet. It overlapped 3 other properties too. Small details most people missed unless they thought in systems the way I did. At work, I ran thermal simulations that kept billion-dollar servers from melting. Here I was running the same math on my own neighborhood. That evening, I stopped at the park again. Families were out, kids on scooters, parents whispering. A woman named Carla approached me first. She fined me last month for planting yellow marigolds. Said they disrupted the color palette. A guy named Mike joined. Shut off my water for 2 days because I missed a payment by 48 hours. My wife's on dialysis. Story after story poured out. Flags too large, Christmas lights left up until February 2nd. One poor soul fined for excessive pumpkin volume at Halloween. We weren't strangers anymore. We were witnesses. And the more they talked, the clearer it became. Patty wasn't enforcing rules. She was manufacturing violations to stay in power. When I got home, another violation notice was taped to my door. Unauthorized child play equipment, $300 for Eli's plastic slide. I crumpled it, dropped it in the trash, and opened my laptop. Not to rant. To log. Timestamps. Temperatures. Photos of the padlock still hanging on my fence like a trophy. This wasn't going to be emotion. This was going to be engineering. I needed proof from inside the machine. That's when I spotted Travis, the maintenance guy, hosing down the clubhouse walkway. He moved like a man who'd learned to stay invisible. I walked over slowly. "Not here to start trouble," I said. "Just need to know who gave her the key." His hose grip tightened. "We all have master keys for irrigation. Irrigation doesn't include locking children in the sun." He glanced toward the tinted windows. Patty was watching, I could feel it. Travis killed the water. She said it was liability. Told me to secure the area after the last complaint. His voice dropped. I didn't know she'd actually do it. Guilt radiated off him hotter than the pavement. I didn't push. "Not yet. I'm not looking to get you fired, Travis. I'm looking to make sure she never does this again." He studied me for a long moment, then muttered, "Diner off Route 93. Tomorrow night. I'll bring what I can." I nodded once and walked away. Behind me, I heard Patty's voice drift from the clubhouse window, sweet as poison honey. "Everything all right out there, Travis dear?" The trap was already closing on her. She just didn't know the jaws were mine. That night I stood in the backyard measuring the fence with a surveyor's wheel. 4 feet missing. Not a mistake. Deliberate. The concrete footings had been poured into my property line to make it look permanent. Patty had used HOA reserve funds to pay a private contractor off the books. I could almost hear her justifying it in some emergency board meeting. For visual consistency, of course. The dark humor of it almost made me laugh, stealing land and calling it aesthetics. The next evening at the diner, Travis slid a folded work order across the table. His hands shook. "She signed this. Told us to realign boundaries for uniformity. Dated 2 weeks before the last county survey." I scanned the page. Forged authority. Clear as day. Travis swallowed hard. "I've got 2 kids too. If she finds out, she won't," I said. "Not from me." He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath since the day he moved that first marker. There's more. Emails. Photos. The whole paper trail on the USB in my truck. He slid it over. Just make it count. I drove home with the weight of a smoking gun in my pocket. Patty thought she built an empire on fear and fines. She had no idea I'd just been handed the blueprints to burn it down. By sunrise, my living room looked like mission control. Thermal graphs, satellite overlays, the work order Travis gave me, all laid out like evidence in a trial Patty never saw coming. I ran the numbers again. At 110 degrees ambient, that gate surface had hit 148 degrees when she locked Eli out. Child safety charts showed organ stress in under 6 minutes. My son had been out there for 11. I printed everything in triplicate, no emotion, just data. Bureaucrats speak data. That morning Patty struck first. 3 new violation notices stuffed in my mailbox, improper drainage, unapproved play structure, and a formal harassment complaint against me for intimidating board members. The timing was perfect. Retaliation dressed up as procedure. I smiled, took photos, and added them to the file. Every swing she took just gave me more ammunition. I called the county assessor's office. The clerk actually laughed when I gave the parcel number. Pinnacle Ridge again? We've had 3 calls this month. Those fence lines don't match the plats. Jackpot. I asked about filing an encroachment complaint and was told to include environmental safety data. Heat. Liability. They practically handed me the playbook. That afternoon I walked the entire property line with my thermal camera, recording ground temperatures every 2 feet. Bare gravel where Patty had ordered vegetation stripped reflected heat straight into 3 backyards, including mine. I fed the data into the same software I use for data center cooling. The graphs came back blood red. Lethal zones. I titled the report, Pinnacle Ridge Safety and Boundary Compliance Assessment. Sterile. Professional. Impossible to dismiss. When I stepped outside to place new survey markers, Travis was watching from the end of the block. He didn't wave. He just gave one slow nod. The first crack in Patty's wall. The city inspector's white sedan rolled in 2 days later. Mara Delgado stepped out, badge gleaming, tablet ready. I met her at the curb. You picked the perfect day for readings, I said. She smiled thinly. Let's see what the numbers say. We walked the line together. She touched the gate, winced, and muttered, hot enough to brand cattle. When she compared her GIS maps to the physical fences, her eyebrows shot up. That's not just overlap. That's deliberate relocation. Patty's SUV appeared at the end of the street, engine idling like a threat. Mara didn't even look up. She'll get formal notice within 72 hours. I expected fireworks. Instead, Patty went quiet. Too quiet. That night my phone buzzed, an anonymous text. Some fences aren't meant to move back, Kessler. I stared at the green boards glowing under the moonlight and answered out loud to no one. Watch me. The next morning Travis met me behind the clubhouse in the service alley. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. She ordered me to delete 2 years of maintenance records, he whispered. Everything about the fence work. I couldn't do it. Not after what she did to Eli. He handed me a second USB. Emails. Budget transfers. The contractor she paid cash under the table. It's all here. His voice cracked. I've got kids too, Ryan. If this blows up, your name stays out of it, I promised. But when she falls hard enough no one ever tries this again. I spent the night uploading everything to a secure cloud. Thermal data. Forged work orders. Misused reserve funds. A pattern of intimidation that turned neighbors into serfs. By dawn I had 5 bound copies ready, 1 for building compliance, 1 for the fire marshal, 1 for the HOA insurance carrier, 1 for my attorney, and 1 for the public record. Patty's SUV cruised past my house at 6 a.m., slowing just enough for me to see her on the phone, mouth moving fast. She was calling in favors. Too late. The city already had the receipts. The emergency board meeting was called for that same night. The community hall was packed. Every resident who'd ever been fined, every parent who'd watched Patty smile while their kids suffered. I sat near the back with Travis and Carla. Patty took the center seat, pearls gleaming, smile locked in place. This meeting is to address certain misunderstandings, she began, voice syrupy. Some residents have invited outside interference that threatens our beautiful community. The doors opened. Mara Delgado walked in with 2 officers and the county assessor. The room went electric. Mara's voice cut through the murmurs like a cooling fan. Correction, Mrs. Beaumont. We're here because of confirmed violations, unauthorized boundary alteration, misuse of reserve funds, and willful endangerment. She placed the citation packet on the table. Effective immediately, you are suspended from all administrative duties. Patty's mask cracked. This is harassment. That man, she jabbed a finger at me, fabricated everything. I stood slowly. I didn't fabricate the 148 degrees gate surface that blistered my son's hands. I didn't fabricate the 4 feet of stolen property or the cash payments to contractors. I just stopped looking the other way. Travis stepped forward, voice steady for the first time in years. I moved those markers on her orders. I have the emails. The photos. Everything. He slid the USB across the table to Mara. The room exploded in whispers, then cheers. Patty tried one last time. You're all being manipulated. I was protecting property values. Someone in the back shouted. You were protecting your ego. Another voice. You fine me for having the wrong shade of beige. Laughter rippled through the crowd, dark, relieved, unstoppable. The officers stepped forward. Mrs. Beaumont, you're being served with notice of civil liability and pending criminal investigation. Please come with us for questioning. As they let her out, the pearls still perfect, the pastel blouse still pressed, Patty looked small for the first time. No clipboard. No smile. Just the realization that every rule she'd weaponized had finally turned on her. The city dissolved the board that week. New elections were scheduled under supervision. Travis got whistleblower protection. Neighbors started talking again instead of whispering. Eli's blistered hands healed, but the memory stayed. And every time we walked past that green fence, now back on the correct side of the line, he'd squeeze my hand and say, "No more locks, Daddy." Standing in the community park a month later, watching kids play without fear, I realized something simple. Patty hadn't just lost her title. She'd lost the illusion that control could ever replace decency. The neighborhood finally breathed again. So tell me in the comments, was Patricia Beaumont really just enforcing the rules? Or was she the real trespasser who stole more than land and money? She stole a community's soul. Who was truly in the wrong here? Drop your thoughts below. And if you've got your own HOA Karen story, share it. The more we talk, the less they can hide.